All right. Hello, everyone. So I just sent the session 3 link in the chat. As a brief overview of today, a lot of what we're going to be doing is installation. So the going back to the first session, we installed, or not installed necessarily, but cloned our GitHub repository for Python focus group to our local computer. Today we're actually going to switch to GitHub Desktop, which is a nicer interface to work with GitHub. And I'll explain a little more about the add, commit, and push, because I know that was kind of a point of confusion for some people. And in addition to that, we are also going to install Conda, which gives us Python. So today we will be writing our first Python code and running a script. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can get started with some of this installation. Okay. Are you seeing the screen?
We can see the screen.
Thank you. Okay. So, as I mentioned before, most of the time that you're doing stuff on GitHub, you have to do this whole git status, git add, git push situation. So, taking a brief look at that, let's go to Python focus group. You have to do this whole git status thing. There's also sorts of things that you've modified. If you want to keep track of those files, you have to add them and so on. So it becomes a mess really quickly, and it's not super, excuse me, it's not super convenient at the command line. So we're going to install GitHub Desktop, which has an interface like this. So instead of having to navigate at the command line through my repositories, I actually see all the stuff that I'm working on that I've stored on my local computer. So I can say, "Oh, let me go to Python focus group. Oh, it looks like there's something new that I've added. I can either choose to keep track of it or I cannot. I can add a message, I can commit it, I can push it, and we'll go through all those steps shortly. But I just wanted to highlight that here we're able to use an interactive interface, which makes things a little easier for us. So we're gonna, I'm gonna first have you install GitHub Desktop. So I'm going to send this in the chat. And if all of you could go ahead and start the installation process, that would be helpful. So if you have a Mac, do the install for Mac. If you have Windows, do the install for Windows. Nobody here has Linux, so we're good on that end. So please go ahead and start the installation. Once you install it, don't do anything yet, just have the file open. I think if you're in Windows, you might have to also install something else. So we'll see. Oh, no, it looks like they fixed the issue they used to have. So yeah, go ahead and just install and we'll be good. Okay, so by this time it looks like everyone has GitHub Desktop installed. So one of the things you're going to notice is here I have my Python focus group repository open and it just shows that I have session 19 that I need to add. But when I look at it on my command line, it has a bunch of stuff that says it's been modified or it's untracked. So typically it's good practice to not use a mixture of both command line and GitHub Desktop at the same time in the same repository because for some reason, at least in my experience, there's some issues with it syncing properly. So what we're actually going to do is go into the Python focus group version that you have on your computer currently and basically delete it so that when we clone it from GitHub Desktop, we're starting from scratch and it's nice and pretty. So everyone take a moment to navigate to where you have your Python focus group directory and run git status. In my case, I have a ton of stuff, but I can go to something else. Um, oh, no, I did a bunch of stuff there yesterday. Haha. You know what? I'm starting to realize I use GitHub Desktop so much, I don't think any of my command line stuff is gonna look clean. But what you should see is something that says like on main branch, your branch is up to date, and then something like no changes needed or something like that, already up to date. If that's the case, then you can just go ahead and delete this directory. So what you would do is go up one directory and then rm dash r, which is recursive, and then you'd say Python focus group. And mind you, you really have to be careful that you're running this command properly because a removal process, if you type the wrong thing or type too fast, you can't really undo. Now, if you have stuff that's currently involved, like if you have stuff in Python focus group that you haven't put on GitHub yet that you would like to save, you can go ahead and run the process for, or am I? I'm still sharing my screen, right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so in this case, you can go through this process, git, add, commit, and push. And so to touch quickly on some of this information, I know there was confusion on what these commands really do. So I wanted to make it a little more clear this time. So when you're working on your local desktop, like you're just doing your own work in your repository, editing your scripts, running whatever you need to run, this is your actual working directory. So the purpose of saying git add is that it moves your stuff into the staging area. It basically says, I'm gonna take these files and actually keep track of them. It's almost like if you're packaging a box and you want to ship it, you're just putting the stuff in the box. Like you haven't closed the box, you haven't finalized anything. You're just saying, hey, I want to put this in the box. So that's what git add is doing. It moves your stuff into the staging area. Once you do git add, it'll start tracking something. So that's where if you do git status again, remember from session one, then it will turn green if you see it. So it shows you that you have been adding that thing to the staged area. Git commit pushes it from the staging area to your local repository. So git commit creates like almost a screenshot of your repository in time. So you can actually just commit without pushing and keep track of all your local changes. That's perfectly fine. So that's saying if you want to revert back to a version, it's almost like working on a Word document and clicking the save button. Like you can go back and open a version of it without issue. So you move from your staging area to a snapshot in your local repository, and then git push is what syncs all your local stuff to the website, to the actual server on GitHub. So that's where if you go on the GitHub interface on the browser, you should see the changes synced. So those are the three commands we use in that order. You're saying, hey, I want to add this information. Hey, I want to actually save it so that if I need to go back to this version, I can do so. And then I want to finalize this and make it my whole GitHub repository on my, like on the repository website. So make sure now that you have, if you have unchanged or untracked files, you have pushed it and saved everything. And if not, then that's fine. And then go ahead and delete Python focus group. So everyone should have done that by now. So now what we're going to do is clone it through GitHub. So when you have GitHub desktop, everyone should now have that and be logged in some capacity. What you can do is say clone repository. And if you search for Python focus group, it should show that your repository is there. And you can go ahead and clone it. I already have it cloned, so it's not going to let me, but you should be able to click it and just click clone, and it will show you the exact path for where your Python focus group is going to go after this. And this is going to be important because we are going to navigate to that place on your computer. So for most Mac users, you don't have to worry about this whole C thing over here, which I'll explain shortly, I think you can just do like CD documents, GitHub, Python focus group once you've done this. For Windows users, it's a little bit different navigating at the command line. So let's say I go back to my home directory and I do ls. I have nothing except Anaconda, and you might have nothing. And if I do ls-al for all my hidden stuff, I still don't see anything about documents or desktop or GitHub. So it's actually structured a different way on Windows. You have to go to a mount point, so you have to do CD. It's very important that it starts with a slash. You go mount C, so that's what this C is. And then from there, you should be able to say like users, and then you can put your username. This is whatever username you have on your computer, and then you can go desktop or you can go documents. And GitHub always goes by default in documents under a folder called GitHub. So if you're a Windows user, you're going to have to do mnt c users, your username, documents, GitHub. So it's a little weird, but then that should take you, if you say ls after you have cloned Python focus group, you should now see Python focus group in your terminal. And if you're Mac, just whatever directory it told you to go to, it should say this is the path. So I think it's just documents GitHub or something like that. Okay, so we've cloned the repository. So now I want you to practice creating something. So let's say we go into Python focus group, make a session 3. I'm going to do lowercase because I already have uppercase session 3. Do I not? Okay, I'm going to do session 003. But you can do 03. And then we'll go into session 003 and we can create a file. So I'm going to split screen this. So let's say nano and I'll say practice.txt. So remember, nano is one of the ways that we can create and open the file immediately. And in here I can say, I am creating this as a demonstration. And then in order to exit nano, remember that little caret thing is the control button. So we can say control X to exit. It'll ask if you want to save. You can say yes. And then you just click enter. So now if you say ls, you should see this practice.txt file. So you've created a file. And now if we look in GitHub desktop, it should actually populate. So we see session 3 practice.txt. And the thing that's nice about this compared to the command line is you can actually see your changes here. So you can see what you did in the file. And if you have a previous version of the file, it even shows you what has changed compared to the last version of your file, which is really helpful. So if you want to add it, I'm going to just add this instead because I don't want to put this in the repository. So remember the general order is git add, git commit, git push. So here, the equivalent of adding is just checking it. So you say, I want GitHub to keep track of this file here. And in order to write a message, you can write the message here. So I'm going to say initial commit because this is the first commit for session 19 for me, which means if you go to Python focus group, it'll populate what I'm halfway through working on right now, which is fine. But I'm doing an initial commit. And then it gives me the option to commit to main. So I'll say, yep, I want to commit that. And then it looks like it's done, but notice that it says push origin. So this is what causes it to sync with the actual browser repository, like the remote repository. So once you click this, it does what it has to do, and then it syncs. So now, if I do anything that changes that file, it will register that the file has changed and allows me to go through that process again. So I can save or upload as many times as I would like. So has everyone been able to create a practice file and push it on Git desktop? Yeah. All right. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to move on. So we went through this process. All right, so that gets us up to speed with GitHub Desktop, which just makes things easier for us moving forward. So now the next thing we're going to do is actually install Python. Now, I used to have a version of this where I recommended Python be installed directly, but in my experience, nobody really just installs Python alone. You're almost always installing Python with other stuff, which makes Conda a little more appropriate to use. So see how here it tells me that I have a base. We'll be talking about Conda many sessions from now in more depth, but basically this is just saying I have different software installed here. So if I say Python 3, it loads Python and I can run Python. So now if I say ls, it's going to yell at me because ls is not a Python command. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You probably cannot do this yet because I assume you do not have Python installed. If you do, that's pretty magical and I'm happy for you. But we're going to go through and install this. So we're going to open the Anaconda website, and Anaconda is the distributor of Python. So I'm going to send this link in the chat so everyone can follow along.
Okay, I have just quick question. If
Mhm.
somebody by some chance have installed Python before, how can we check? Just try to open it like Python 3 and
Yeah. So if you say Python 3 and it opens with a version number and information and this, then you will have had it installed already.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I think I sent it in chat. Yes. So here, download now. There used to be a way to get around creating get access completely free. Returning users? They changed this. I think you might actually have to create an account now. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna get started and sign up. Do I have? No, I don't think I have. I'm gonna look at my password manager over here really quick and put you guys over here. Oh, thank you for that, Nat. It does say it looks like you can use GitHub to log in. So yeah, you can just connect to your GitHub account and then use that for login. I'm not going to be creating an account because I already have Conda installed, but if you need to create an account, you can sign in with GitHub and then it should give you a way to download. Maybe I should just do it for good practice. I'll pause the recording. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this, put my name. I like to give it no information because I'm like that. Okay, so yeah, I think this is what Nat was asking. There's Miniconda and the Anaconda distribution. Miniconda is really helpful if you just need like bare basic essentials, and this is helpful if you're having trouble with other things or limited on space, but it does cause more issues for you. So it means that you will have to specify different things at the command line, install more things when it comes time. So it's generally better if you're not super computer savvy to just use the general Anaconda distribution. So this is where things get a little interesting. So you're going to go click CD at your terminal, and this should bring you all the way back to your home directory. And now right click this, and it should give you an option to copy the link. So now on your terminal, you can say wget and then paste the link. Oh, you know what? I lied a little bit. I forget. Since we're using WSL2, you're gonna follow the Linux installer because I noticed that this is an exe, which is the Windows extension for an executable file, and we don't actually want that. So go to Linux and right click the installer and copy the link. So the 86 installer, and now do wget and then paste it. Yeah, so it should be a .sh extension because that means it's a shell file or like it's written in bash so you can execute it with Unix language. So once you type that, it will download a bunch of fun stuff for you. And it might take a hot second. So as a quick aside, wget doesn't always come installed with computers. There's other different ways that you can do it. I think curl is another option. So curl. And so you can do curl and then the link, except I think you might have to specify the output name, or you can run it. I'm a wget girl. I think you might be able to do curl. I'm gonna not do that. No, I'm going to exit my terminal and start over. If I could not do this, that'd be great. Okay, this is going well, clearly. Goes to show that you're probably going to run into issues in some capacity at any time, no matter how experienced you are. Where's my turn?
Very concerning.
Yeah, I'm gonna just end that. There we go. We're gonna go back there now and not do that. Okay, so don't do curl, because that clearly is going to misbehave if you just run what I ran. But if you do wget, or I think if you just do curl and then the output, it should give you the sh file. So now if you do ls, you should have an sh file. So everyone should have that. And then you can say bash anaconda.sh, and bash is the command that is telling it to run that. So bash is the language this is written in, so saying bash anaconda, whatever. Oh, I have the hiccups. This will run it. So then this will be an interactive process. It'll say like, in order to continue installation, please review the license, yada yada. So you press enter. It'll ask, do you accept the license terms? You're going to say yes, because if you say no, it's not going to let you have it. And then it's going to say it'll be installed into this location. So this is referring to the home directory on your terminal. I would not change this because I've tried doing that and it was a bigger pain than I'd like to admit. So I would just recommend the default. I'm not going to install this, so I'm going to click Control C to abort installation because I already have it. So I'm going to click Control C, but you should be able to now go through and install. Oh no, Camille, welcome back. We're installing Anaconda. Camille, do you have a Windows or Mac? I think you have a Mac. Yeah, so do the command line installer. So if you're Mac, do this command line installer. Oops.
I
Okay.
think she might have Windows, if I remember.
If you're Windows, Camille, then you're gonna do. Hmm. Oh my goodness, they really changed this. Okay. It should have given you the option to download either way. But yeah, you're just gonna follow the Linux instructions if you're Windows. All right. So now that you have Anaconda installed, it should have asked you a bunch of information about like, do you want to agree to the license? Can we initialize? So it'll say like, can I run init? And you can say yes. So it might take time and it's going to print a bunch of stuff out at your terminal. So for example, if I go to, this is not something you should follow along right now. This is just a demonstration of what it'll probably look like for you. Um, let's see. I'll just do a package I already have, but it'll show you still what it looks like. So let's say I say Monba install polars. You would say conda. That's a later problem. But it should do something like this, where it's setting up all these weird channels and like doing stuff for you. Has anyone gotten it installed yet? Yay! Okay. So it's still in the works. Looks like things are going well. It does take time, so that's perfectly fine. Um, Yay. All right, we're getting somewhere.
Sorry, I just want to confirm. So we are right now still installing Conda, and if you have Conda, that means that you're on the right track, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I just wanted to demonstrate what it might look like for you if you're installing the package. So it'll ask you like, yes, do you want to proceed with a bunch of installation? You would say yes. I already had this installed, so it didn't ask me, but it should give you that. And then once you have Conda installed, heck yeah. And once you have Conda installed, Python is automatically installed when you install Conda. So you can verify this by running Python 3 dash dash version. And it should print out the version to indicate that you have Python installed now. So that's the telltale sign of a successful install. So if it tells you a version number, you're good. Alternatively, and this is what we're going to do next, if you just type Python 3 and it changes from having a dollar sign to these three caret looking symbols, then that also means that you're good. That means you got Python and you're ready to start typing stuff on Python or in Python. Okay, so I want to explain now that we have Python, there's a few different ways that we can run Python. So the most common way that we're going to run it from here on out is to be running it in a script, to write it in a script and then run the code as a script. But we're going to probably get to that. Like, we'll make an example script by the end of this session, but for now, I just want to talk about some of the basics of the language. So, to highlight again, if I do ls, it shows me what I'm running here. But this is Unix. We're running Unix, which is why when we set up the terminal, we needed to have a specific terminal for Windows users to be able to run these commands. Now, if I run Python 3, it actually activates this interactive Python interface. So if I type ls, it's like, that's not defined. I don't know what you're, like, I don't know what you want. So now we've switched languages. We've gotten from Unix to now working in Python. So, as is the custom, the first thing we're going to print is hello world. So, print is a function. So we just write print. I'll zoom in a little. So we just write print and then in parentheses, we print whatever we want to print. Now, if we write, we have to write in quotations if we want it to print exactly what we want. So I'll say, hello world, and then end quotation, and then close the parentheses, and it should print that back out to you. It'll say, hello world. Now you can print all sorts of things. You can say your name, you can say someone else's name. Notice that if you don't have the parenthesis, or if you don't have the quotation marks, it says Vicky is not defined. That's because it's looking for a variable. we're going to go into data types, variables, strings, stuff like that later. But for now, if you want something printed exactly, you just have to put the quotation mark so that it will print properly. You're telling it to just print text at that point. So one of the confusing things is Python is very forgiving in that you can have more or less spaces compared to other languages. So I can say Vicky and then space, and it'll still behave. So in some languages, this will throw up an error, but Python is very forgiving. It will allow you to have different numbers of spaces for organization purposes. It's also a little flexible. So if I wanted to say, I have two cats, notice that I switched from the double quotation to just a single quotation mark, and it still behaves similarly. So you can use double quotes or single quotations. And this matters more because if we say something like print, um, let's say we're doing single quotation marks, and I say, I don't want to do this analysis today, it's getting mad. So why is it getting mad? Well, that's because it interprets this and this as the beginning or end of a string, but we use it as an apostrophe halfway through. So now it's getting upset because it's like, it's nice. It tells us informatively. It even points to where the issue is. It's like right here. I don't know what this is. Like, what is going on here? So, if you want to interchange between using single or double quotes, you can do it strategically based on what you're trying to print. So, in this case, if I switch these to double quotes, it's going to interpret this as part of the string, like part of the stuff you're printing. So it interprets this as the beginning and this at the end. So now it's good. See a chat. I'm getting unable to initialize device PRN. Have you tried closing and reopening your terminal? Were you getting that error in Python?
Wait, what was that question? You froze for a second.
Sorry, were you getting that error while running Python?
Yes, I was getting it from the Python terminal. Am I supposed to have the navigator open? It
No.
gave me a terminal with the download, but if you want me to use the command prompt and open it from there,
Try using the command prompt. The command prompt
I'll do
might be a
that.
little easier to use.
We are.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going on with print stuff since I know print will be an easy thing to catch up on, but if by the end of the session you're still having trouble running some Python stuff, I'll work with you on that. Okay, so yeah, here's print. So we can interchange the single versus double quotes and it will work nicely for us. So there's also other things that we can do. So let's say we can invert this and this, but let's say we don't want to use double quotes. Let's say I'm really particular and I want to use the single quotes. Just an FYI, if you click the up arrow in your keyboard, it will go through the previous things you've run. So this is how I got that quickly. So I went up just twice to my previous command. So there is a way that I can tell it to treat this as a character, and we'll learn about this in more depth later. But briefly, if I put this slash in front of it, I'm basically saying to Python, treat this as an actual character, don't treat it as the end of the line. So now if I print it, it behaves. So there's all sorts of little different things in the language that we're going to learn about. And basically, at, at its core, Python will just allow you to do whatever you need to do. It is as powerful as you are in telling it what to do, and it is a blessing and a curse that it does exactly what you tell it to do. So now that we've run some stuff here, we can go ahead and exit. So there's two options, or there's actually a few options on how to leave this Python interface. You can quite literally just exit out the terminal, but I don't like doing that because then I have to reopen it and it's a whole ordeal. So what you can do is type quit with these parentheses because this indicates this is a function, and that will exit Python. So now you've gone from Python back to Unix. So now if we do ls, it will work again because we're in Unix again. So now we're going to actually try running a Python script. So go ahead and navigate to where you have your Python focus group. Remember for Windows, it's like this MNTC, this whole thing. Oh, I forgot CD. There we go. So now we're going to go back into that. I think I made this session 3. There we go. So now if you make a script, we have this practice.txt, but we're going to create something else now. So we're going to say nano, and we'll call it hello world. And instead of .txt, we're going to use this extension .py. So now it should open hello world.py. So there's this weird thing that we can put at the top. This is called the interpreter directive. This is telling the command line that what you're running in this file is Python code. And this is helpful because it's a little complicated, but it means that later if you wanted to run this without running Python 3 in front of it, you can do so. But it's generally good practice in my experience to just have this at the top of your scripts. So you're basically saying run Python 3 when you're running this script. And then you can type your hello world. So you can say print hello world. So you have your interpreter directive that tells the command line that what's in this file is Python code, and then you have the Python code. And now we can click Control X for exit. We can save with Y, and then we can click Enter. And now, if we do ls, we see hello world.py. The way that you run the command, or the way that you run this as a script is by just running Python 3. I'm going to maximize this. So we put Python 3 and then the name of the script. So space, the name of the script, and it runs the code inside it. So notice that now it's saying hello world, and we can print this as many times as we want. Basically, every single time we run this, it executes whatever code we have put in the script. So if we wanted to change that, we could say nano hello world.py, and we can say print, this is my first Python script. And then we can save that again. So Control X, yes, enter, and then Python 3 hello world.py. And now it prints the new thing. So it's just executing whatever Python code that we have in the script as a script. And this is really helpful because going forward, when we're doing any sort of analysis, when we're working with data, we want things to be reproducible. We want to actually document what we did. So even though we can work with all of this in an interactive interface, that doesn't save the code that we ran. So if somebody says, "Hey, how did you generate this?" You're like, "I don't know. I just kept typing things at the command prompt until eventually something worked." Like, yeah, it worked, but that's not very reproducible and it's not really helpful because what if you need to do the thing again later? So it's always good practice that if you're writing any sort of code, you're putting it in an actual script. So from now on, instead of running things interactively, we're going to be primarily running things in scripts. So this is why in session 1 and 2, a lot of what we focused on was creating files, moving files, navigating the command line. A lot of stuff that wasn't directly Python was more Unix and kind of command prompt stuff. That's because a lot of Python is going to be dependent on running it in a bigger compute environment. So yeah. I believe that is it for today. Oh, no, I lied. You are going to go into GitHub Desktop, and with GitHub Desktop, you're going to commit that change. So this hello world.py, you're going to select that, and you're going to write initial commit. Or you can say first Python script. You can say whatever you want about it. You're going to click commit, and then once you commit it, you're going to push it up here. And that will give you a nice, beautiful, cleaned up repository. And then you don't have to work with Git on the command line for at least for now, unless you're on Hive or something. But if you're just working locally, you can use GitHub Desktop. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and then we can address any questions or issues that we've run into.